Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Slinging Seeds. I'm your host, Kyle Evans. This is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our very special guest today, Corey Arnold. Doug.
Yeah, so Corey I've known since he was about 14, 15 years old. He played in our program from 16 to 18, roughly. Then came back and coached for 5 years, had a 4-year career at Earlham, went to Hamilton High School. Phenomenal coach, phenomenal human, one of my guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, jump on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so first things first, I want to go back a little bit of ways. Obviously, you played on a really, really good 2016 team in our program with the guys of Kent Reeser, Brian Corbett, Mason Sherrill, Corey Snyder, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about that team and what it was like to be part of that group, and
So I, came to it a little bit later. I wasn't there at the start, and played against you guys like 6 times in 2 years, and I played well. And funny story from that, Mark Clausing, you could tell some of the background of this, but Mark was the first base coach, and I played first base, and I was pretty talkative there. And Mark recruited me hard because I think Doug, wanted to bring me on, and Mark knew he'd get me talking. Well, it got to the point where we were 15 down in Nashville, and Mark stops me on the street and shows me his phone, and I'm on his phone background. He's like, telling me, how he loved like watching, getting to play against me and stuff like that. And so I'm like, okay, these guys are crazy and they beat us. This is, and then, come stuff happened with the team I was on. I was actually, we've talked a little bit about this off air, but I was kind of considering like, done with this. I was frustrated with how baseball was going for me. I had, like some
So just a complete washout. Just be done with it?
At 16, yeah.
That's crazy.
Like we were in Florida at my grandparents' place on vacation, and like that's kind of where my head was. Like I love fishing. I was telling my dad like, maybe I could fish in college. Like that was, if I was even going to go, like maybe I just fish in general.
Yeah.
But which is I know sounds crazy.
No, that's why I said it sounded crazy, because all the stories that I get from Doug, and to hear that from you.
Yeah, I was that frustrated, and like growing up loving the game is, and I love the game hard. Like I'm so passionate about it and so invested in, it's the best game on the planet. And I was just like devastated, at that point. And like I said, I had some success against Doug, and my dad's like, reach out, and then then I it all works out. I joined the group, and it's just like I'm on a team with, I don't know if heathens is the right word, but I mean we were just like rabid dogs, and Doug's holding us back on a very flimsy lead.
Stray dogs, man.
Dude, I mean, from that group, you listed a bunch of guys that are great players and great dudes. None of us played D1. Like we were undersized, or in my case, too like oversized, too slow. Couldn't outrun a sundial. But like we just all had this mentality of we're here to kick your tail and
Absolutely
kind of embarrass you in the process. We're playing the Giants scout team, and it's me, like 3 other hitters, and a bunch of POs, and I was scared.
Yeah.
They got this lefty. I don't know how hard he was throwing, but it was harder than anything I'd ever seen. And he's like 6'6". And I'm kind of sitting there, I'm trying to act cool, but like inside, heart's
oh,
rate,
yeah.
like I'm gonna embarrass myself my first game here. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And first game here, it's going to be just bad. I'm gonna. And Doug comes over, and I don't know if you knew where we were at, but he said, I don't care that they're the Giant Scout team. I don't care, this guy's going here or whatever. Go out there, kick, steal their girlfriends, and make their mamas love you more than them.
Yeah.
you know, and like from there, it led to the best, like my favorite 2 years of playing baseball in my life. Like, you know, T-ball to college, I played in a lot of places with a lot of people, but those 2 years playing with you, and that group of guys, like it was so much fun.
I was pretty young, right? So there was a lot of things that I hadn't matured yet. I wasn't even with Jamie, like
You got engaged to her
yeah,
that off.
got engaged to her that off season. I was young. I was still trying to, I don't know. I coached with a chip. I think is the nicest way to say it. I didn't realize that, I kind of had a chip where I wanted to prove everybody what we could be and who we were, and I didn't care if you had. I think they had 9 Division I commits on that team starting against us, against a bunch of guys we didn't have one. And when you coach long enough, you can get a sense and a gauge for what your team's feeling. So sometimes you have to be their confidence. That's how I felt. Right now, I've learned over the last decade how to corral that and try to do it the right way. But sometimes you just have to be the confidence in the room, right? Sometimes you got to be there. Scouts say that you walk into a room and you've already been there for 5 minutes because of your aura, right? That's what we were trying to get. So I knew that they weren't in a mental position to go out and compete against this team that was way more talented than us. So I had to bring them back and let them know that who we are, and we don't back down ever. And we ended up getting a really good win that game.
Yeah.
It was a really good win, beating a team that we probably had no business beating. But sometimes you gotta feel that. You have to feel it. You have to let your kids know. You got to let them know that, hey, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself, and we're going to go do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of circle around this, just kind of talk about Doug. You can kind of reinforce what I'm going to say if you feel this way. Doug's a kind of a realistic guy behind
Yeah.
closed doors, but when he's in front of the players, it's full go.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think
So
I like that,
I've been
you
on the
know?
other side of
Yeah,
that with Doug, where we were coaching against top tier, and they had 4 high school draft picks on that team against
yeah.
our group that wasn't a super strong group, and I'm young out of college, losing my mind, and Doug's trying to instill confidence in him too, but then he's telling me like, hey, you can't kill them here, you gotta instill
Like,
confidence without going too far.
I played for coaches in my past, and I won't say any names because that's just not that guy. But
Yeah.
where they'll come up to us like, "Okay, boys, chances are slim today, but we might be able to pull this one out." I hated that. I used to hate that. Why? Because it was. I mean, you're pre-exempting yourself to a loss, and he's never done that. I've never seen him do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was what it was. So obviously you come in on that team, and we have a really good first fall.
Mhm.
We have a really good year that fall. I think in your time with us, if you count that fall, I mean, I think we went 73-8. I think we won 10, 11 tournaments.
32-1 the last year.
Yeah, 32-1 at 18. So obviously that team was extremely competitive. Um, Going through that process and all that, what would a lot of people say summer ball is about me, it's about going out there and it's just about playing and getting my looks. What would you say to that high school kid? Because that team wasn't that. What advice would you give to the high school player about trying to keep that competitiveness while you're trying to get where you want to go?
I mean, to a degree, you could sit down and ask all the guys from that team, like, even though we did band together that way, and like that's just all the things that are said about that group are all true, but there is a selfish aspect to being a great team player. Like, you know, this is going to sound like a dumb thing, but I think picking up baseballs like that might buy me an extra, knock one day. Doing the right things, being a great team player, ultimately that's going to benefit me. Um, Now just, in general, I believe playing as hard as you can at all times because you only got so many. Like I ran out of games before I thought you know, I, I wasn't disillusioned thinking I was going to play forever, but it happened for me even quicker than, I thought it would. Um, but like if you're a guy that struggles, like you said in summer ball, this is about me, not the team. Well, maybe look at it the other way. Like if I do the right things here, like pick up the baseballs, be a great teammate, bring a guy his glove and stuff when he's out, out on the bases. Um, you know, maybe that's going to buy me a knock with the baseball gods. Like I know that can sound kind of crazy to some people, but you know,
No, I think you and I are right on track with that.
yeah, like even if you are a selfish person, which I'm naturally like that's not totally me. I was all about the team. But even like specifically to that selfish guy, like go do the right things and maybe you'll get yourself a knock, maybe you'll get your, instead of the ball tipping off your glove on diving play, you're going to get that one.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I coached some selfish guys in the years and that was my message to them and I think it helped a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, my grandpa played ball, and growing up, I just remember him telling me, you want your you don't want your teammates to complain as much as they triumph or something. It was I can't remember, it was so long ago, but
Yeah.
he really just said you don't want to be a guy that everybody complains about. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if you're a guy that everybody complains about, it's you're not the guy that they go to. When things get tough,
Yeah.
and it's not a dependable aspect of life as being a guy that everybody complains about. So no, I really like that answer. It was a great answer.
Yeah, I mean, so go back a little bit. Obviously that team was really, really good, really, really successful. You guys had a really good bond, really good relationship. Let's talk about some kind of the coaching staff. Casey Clapp, Max Ramsey, Lance Baker.
Yeah.
And
Coach Sullivan.
yeah,
Yep.
Brian Sullivan,
Yep.
right? It did a phenomenal job. And then obviously you had a little bit of time with Mark Halsey, right?
Yeah.
You knew Mark. So what did that staff mean to you? How did they help you prepare? Those things.
I mean, each person, was a different, like when you have a staff that, I mean, at times was six, but 99% of the time, five people. Each guy like slid into a different role. Like, I love Lance. He was kind of the, like drill sergeant on our stuff all the time. Like I remember at the old warehouse having to do duck walks, to do anything else but duck walks across the whole, facility work. And, but it was that tough. You got a lot of tough love from Lance and, it was, it fit with our group and other groups. It didn't. Coach Sullivan, even though he was a pitching coach, like he talked with me all the time, come in and like was very supportive to hitters and stuff. And then Max and Casey, obviously I got a special relationship with both of them. Um, them being the younger guys, you kind of get to relate with them a little bit. Well, they're both old now, and especially Casey. But like, so with Casey, some of my favorite stories from 18, even though, we went 32-1 and we're super competitive, all this stuff, me and Doug would mess with Casey at that point. And a lot of the times, I'd battled through some back injuries, some knee injuries. I was getting pinch ran for because, again, can't outrun the sundial. And, there was one game where me and Doug, I was DHing because back then we had a fun rule. I don't
Yeah,
totally
for sure. Yeah, we wouldn't go into that.
Yeah. But we're kicking this team's tail and Casey, we're in the third base dugout. Casey's coaching third. We're winning, whatever to nothing.
Yeah.
And me and Doug are discussing fantasy baseball trades. And Casey could hear this.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Casey could hear this from third base. And he's like, he starts getting upset and he's like, guys, we're in a ball game here. Or something to the effect that
He
I'm like,
kind of checked us both.
yeah, which he was right. And we both knew he was right. But I was coming up to bat soon. I'm, putting my stuff on. I'm like, don't worry, Casey, I got this. And I come up and, runners on second and third or base, something like that. I hit a double and the game's just now completely out of reach. I'm going past Casey and I tell Doug, yeah, I'll accept that trade. And as I'm jogging off the field to get my pinch runner. And so that was,
you got just
yeah.
There was no trade. We were just messing with Casey.
Yeah. And then with Max, it was always respectful. I love Max. Like we're still super tight. But he coached first base and then worked with catchers, and I wasn't a catcher, so really the only interaction I had with him, on the field was at first or in the dugout. So whenever I'd walk or get a base knock, I wore an elbow guard and had batting gloves and all that. Instead of going there and handing it to him, I'd act like I'd hand it to him and just drop And I'm sure if a college coach is there watching it, it'd probably look horrible.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'd throw it real hard at Max, hit him in the chest. But like even though the moral of the story is, even though he wasn't coaching me, like they or my specific position or hitting or yeah, like we had a great group and we had a lot of fun because we were all working towards the same goal and it was just it's so different. I've never been a part of another group like it.
No, I hear
Yeah,
about that team a lot.
it's almost
Yeah.
tough to explain, dude.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is. And I think sometimes the guy that explains it the best is Doug. And I think it's just because from his perspective, the way that you see that team, the way that you see those
Master of
boys. Master of puppets.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Uh,
So obviously, going through that process, you had some recruiting
Mhm.
success, right? Because you could obviously really hit one of the best inbox guys. I mean, obviously the knees, the back became an issue, and you didn't get to be the guy we all expected you to be in college. So tell us a little bit about the recruiting process and what you learned going through that, and then you obviously settled on Earlham.
Yeah, I mean it was different. I think I have a bit of a different story from a lot of guys. Because at least a lot of the guys that we've helped get recruited are underweight, undersized. If they're not a D1 guy, that's always that's a lot of the times the conversation. Where I was opposite. I was big guy, strong guy, could not run, didn't field real well, which is so funny because that's like my favorite things to coach are base running and fielding. Um, but like, we I remember there was a certain school that, probably would have been my most prestigious offer. I think you know the one I'm talking about. They're like, yeah, he would only DH, there's no real future here because he's not a left-handed first baseman. Um, and then there was a lot of other schools that, just like I went on a couple visits, they just didn't work out. Like one was to downtown Detroit. So there were some weird ones too. We should probably edit that one out. But ultimately with Earlham, like Doug said, I had injuries. Um, the baseball side, beautiful. Great field, great program tradition. Um, really liked what I had with the coaching staff there at the time. And ultimately, my dad's like hiring manager at his company, like he sent like kind of the final list of schools to her, and she's like, "Yeah, this place I'd hire college kid out of." So that was a big factor in my decision too. The academic side of it.
so I guess the way I'm going to move next is, you had a good playing career, had to get in college. Doug, I want you to kind of tell our viewers and also me what it meant to have Corey Arnold as part of your rosters.
Um, it made it extra, right? It was kind of like coaching a wolf, a rabid dog, right? Where you had to control him for the betterment of himself. The good thing about Corey is obviously the most competitive, the most loving, the best teammate, right? Loved all his guys. He kept the dugout loose because he was always making fun of somebody or telling a joke or taking a shot at somebody, and we'd give it back and all this stuff, and that I mean that was me too. Like he would come at me the same way. So it was special, just because he was so competitive and he was so intelligent. You know what I mean? And when you could get him in a real conversation when he's not being that guy, right? Sometimes when you just talk ball, um, he could always give you a enlightened perspective that you maybe hadn't thought of because he looks at it a different way. So when it comes to baseball IQ, he's one of the smartest guys I was ever around. Um, right? He was too fat. He was too slow, right? You know what I mean? And by the time he was 18, he had bad knees, a bad back, and he got everything out of his body just because of his knowledge of the game. Um, he's one of those players that you wish you would have got earlier so he could understand how important it was to be in the weight room or not try to lift the house to hurt himself. But
Right.
That's where it went from. Like
yeah.
doing really whatever the high school program gives you to 6 days a week powerlifting, West Side barbell, fundamentals,
Yeah.
and I blew out my back.
Yeah. So I wish I would have had him a little sooner to try to help him through that process, or with what we know now, because I think the bat was real. The bat was real. The power was real. he never wanted to. I mean, I wish I knew a little bit more. Obviously, you get better as a hitting coach. What I could do with his swing now, and could have explained to him better why you can't be a 250-pound line drive hitter. You know what I mean? That doesn't hit the ball at the ballpark. I mean, I think with what we've learned and the way data's gotten better and all this stuff that we've learned about hitting, it would be fun to work with him now, right? But it was special. I mean, that's the real answer. It was special. We were close. His dad was awesome. His mom was awesome. I loved the family. Um, they did everything we asked, when we asked it, how we asked it. You know, kind of boastful, right? So
Right.
that part was fun.
Yeah.
You know, so but no, it was an honor to coach Corey. And then the 5 years where he came on staff, that was awesome because he made me a better coach. Really good in the momentum lead stuff, which is something that we pride ourselves in. He was really good at that. Really good at picking off moves. Best first base coach I've been around. It's not a shot at anybody else, but like he could come back and say the pitcher's doing this, 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 and this, and he was dead on every one of them. One of the best guys I'd ever been around at finding out if a pitcher's tipping. Hey, he's doing this when he throws his breaking ball, and it would take an inning. Um, really good sign guy, right? Hey, their steal signs this, their bunts this, their hit and runs this, right? And he would have it the first time they did it, and so he had that extra for the game where he could get more because he understood everything going on around him, and the players loved him. So and the players are never wrong, right? I mean, till to this day, Alec Halter, Colton Molenkamp, Grady Combs, they love this guy, right? They were heartbroken when he ended up moving to Florida with work and all that stuff. So because they didn't get him to finish out their high school career with them, you know, because he coached them at 15 and 16.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. That's a great group of kids.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so yeah, it was special. I mean, that's the nicest way I can say it. And I know it was a long rant, but it was
No,
special.
That's what we asked for, you know.
It
And
was,
I think
it was
moving.
special.
My apologies.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine.
I think moving into our next question, that kind of brings me and directs me back to Corey. He spoke about, you know, the time with your playing career with him and then coming back and being on staff. Tell us a little bit about that transition in your relationship with Doug, from player to coach. I can imagine it wasn't much different.
I mean, yeah, it was, I don't know, that first fall, man, it was just like, yeah, there's an age gap here. Doug's obviously much older and uglier than me, you know. But, yeah,
You know, I'm starting to see the similarities with you guys, not in looks, but I'm just saying, like, you guys treat each other the same.
yeah,
You're very much like Doug, I can see.
you know, it was so unique. Like, I don't know, it felt like I do wish like I got to play with you earlier. There's some story there too that probably just shouldn't. It's a long story. But like at 17, you know, I remember an inter squad that we had because we had a ridiculous amount of players, which what you did at the time, and I loved it. I think that should still be the case. But we had what, 23 guys?
23 guys. Yep.
So if a team backed out of playing us, we just play each other, and it was the most competitive inter squads. You would have like, but you know, this kept happening where teams would hear like, oh, these guys are killing everyone and back out. Like it happened 4 or 5 times that summer, right?
You know, back then when you used to play weekday games.
Yeah, that, and if you had nobody to kill, you guys were killing yourselves, it sounds.
Basically, but ultimately, you know how inter squads go. They get
Oh, yeah,
boring.
yeah.
You know, and on the fourth one, you know, we're all kind of coasting through it because it's like, man, you know, I want fresh meat. You know, that was what
Yeah.
the group was like. Yeah, I want something, but we were throwing a guy against me. You know, not going to throw names out there, but I was bored. And Doug knew I was bored and was in the other batter's box, and there's like 2 pitches go by, ball and a strike. I'm kind of just sitting there like, you know, whatever. I'm going to take. I had a really good eye, so I'm like, I'm just going to take my walk, and I'm not too worried about this. And Doug said something, you know, about, you know, he's got like 5 plus, you know, plus pitch, or like something he knew would set me off.
You know what it was?
I
I can't
mean, I
remember.
do, but I'm not going to call that kid out. But I basically
Oh, we
I
won't.
basically told him that
Yeah.
the kid on the mound was Cy Young,
Yeah.
and like you're not good enough to get a hit, so I understand why you're taking this rep off.
Oh.
So I'm like, yeah. Yeah. You know,
I'm not gonna say it, but here it is.
the next pitch I just hit like Doug
Um,
said, I was a line drive hitter. My goal every time I was in the batter's box before I worked with you, was hitting a line drive through the left field fence. And then when I got with Doug, it was through the right center field part of the fence.
Yeah.
That's where he improved me a lot as a hitter. But I hit this thing 6 feet off the ground, like one hop into left center field at Carlisle. I cruise into second, and I give Doug some gestures and say some words, and but that's just who we were as a player coach. This other incidents happened, during that time, like we were talking about the fantasy stuff, and but yeah, your original question was about my transition to coaching.
Yeah, your
Sorry.
transition from playing it. No, it's okay. Hey, bud, I'm just saying, if people are coming here for short stories, you're in the wrong podcast.
No, yeah, we got
We
a
got
lot, we got a lot of long. I mean, really, a lot of stories.
For sure.
But I remember it was at DC. I came out to watch a game after my college season was done my junior year, and that year I broke a bone in my shin, and just like, and I was especially like beat up by that year because I thought, I'm everything I've worked for, like I'm going to be a big year for me. It just didn't turn out that way.
Right.
And I remember sitting in the dugout watching. I don't even know who was playing, honestly. I remember Dreyer was pitching, but I don't remember what the situation was. I'm sitting there, and Doug's, comes in the dugout, and we hadn't really talked a ton at that point of the day yet because he was
Right.
busy. He's like, "You're done playing." I'm like, "I didn't say that. I got another year, and I'm gonna." I was too stubborn to take the easy way. Even though I was pretty beat up at that point. He's like, you should come coach. We need coaches. And, as a guy that when I came to the Canes, it was just us, just our group. And then my 18 year, there was the two teams. And, I took a lot of pride in that, especially that 2022 group. Those were guys that, I expected a lot out because I love what the Canes were. And now, I love what P4-3 is now. But like, it made all the sense in the world when you said it, like you should coach. And I was at a point where, again, another rocky part with baseball, how the game treats you. It's not gentle at the end, when you've run out of talent, run out of, all the good stuff that you could do for the game. I just like, okay, I got to get back, and then ultimately me just giving back, like turned into me again being a competitive guy. Like, all right, now I'm gonna build these kids to go kill people like I did, and
Right.
my groups did, and then ultimately ended up coaching with Doug as an assistant because of work and just who I was. I didn't want to be a head coach. I wanted to just be Doug's assistant. His back to being Doug's little pit bull,
Right.
on a leash, doing stuff that Doug is the head coach, and then now the head boss of this whole thing couldn't do. You have a lot of responsibilities here and doing all that, but like really want to be his assistant. Then from there, Doug took. I'd had a lot of experiences doing different types of roles up until that point, and then while I was on Doug's staff, he really developed me as a coach. I remember a conversation we had at a tournament where you basically told me, hey, need you to be you, basically in different terms, and be opinionated because I was deferring a lot to other coaches and being the younger guy there. And after that, just like I don't know, instilled me that confidence to where sometimes to a fault, I was going to get my piece out there. And we had a great working relationship while we were, there. I wish could have gone longer. Obviously, I had a lot of fun doing it, but that's kind of where we got with that.
So it seems like, Doug and I, we meet every Friday, and just kind of go over some simple things in business. We go over some things as far as, just personal. And you get brought up in conversation a lot as, who Doug hangs out with and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about your guys' personal relationship, going to, Gator games and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And,
Obviously we're both big fans of the Wildcats, both big Reds fans and just, sports junkies in general. So we've been in a group chat with another guy, Kent Smith. I don't know if you've met
I've met Kent,
yeah. Basically, I think we were 17 when just like he would have the same conversation with me and Kent, and I was having the same conversation with Kent. It's like, all right,
let's all have that conversation together.
yeah, how any group chat's made, Corey, great job. explaining group chat.
Oh, come on, Corey.
I wasn't gonna make fun of you till
No, I it clicked you know, but yeah, we're just like both ate up with baseball, like, then we talk sports a lot, and like I said, as a coach, Doug's mentored me, and not just, baseball is a game of life, so it's not just about baseball, but about being a great man, and we have a lot of conversation. I mean, shoot, I probably talk to you more than I talk to anyone else for the most part.
Sure.
What's your guys' favorite memory together? I mean, I'll let you both go. Either one of you can go first. But.
You can take the Diamond League story.
I mean, we could share that one. That's definitely one. I mean, have you heard the Diamond?
We haven't said it. We haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. And
Yeah.
I told him, I said there's two people that I'm okay with being here telling that story, and it's you and
That's probably one of our top stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you
he
talk
tells
about
it pretty well.
Yeah,
so if you
talk
got
about
it,
some of the stuff that
Yeah, so I mean, for me, like I said, the Diamond League story is probably one of my favorites because Corey likes when I get there. It's him and his team's favorite story is the Diamond League, right? Which is so there was a league back when leagues were a big time thing, right? You had the SWOL, or what was it called?
Swole.
The Swole,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which was really good back then.
Yeah.
The league actually mattered. You had National League, and you had to make it. Like you couldn't just be an American League team and say I want to play national. You actually had to earn to get your way up there. And
It's like so foreign now.
yeah,
That's
it's
so crazy to me.
So like we're playing this team from the Diamond League, the Ohio Thunder, I think is what they were called, and they were a good team. They had a decent record. Well, this coach pregame decided that he was going to say some stuff with an umpire behind the plate that he shouldn't have said, right? Because that team was in game the most competitive team I've ever coached, right? And they were good. And they weren't the most talented, but they played a brand of baseball that they were proud of, and they were going to beat you 6-2, right? And they were gonna win, and then if you said something, they were going to blow up, and they were going to try to beat you by 1,000,000 because they were so competitive. So pregame, this guy during ground rules basically says, "Hey, you guys have a cute record."
Undefeated at the time.
We were
Yeah.
undefeated at the time. This was 18U. We were playing at the Nischwitz.
You're telling
tournament.
this story to these people.
Yeah.
I know.
We're at the Nischwitz tournament, which Nischwitz always had a great tournament at Wright State. It was like 8 teams. It was always good.
remember,
There were
yeah.
no time limits. You played out games. Like
Man.
it was real baseball.
Yeah.
And Nischwitz did a great job of that event. I miss it. So we're playing this Ohio Thunder team, and coach basically said, "You have a cute record. But we play in the Diamond League where real baseball's played." So I was pretty fired up. I think it's the nicest way to say it. The umpire behind the plate's a good friend of mine, and he looked at this coach and said, "Yeah, I don't think you understand what you just did." So I make a comment with him. We go back to the team, and I basically say, "We're going to bury these guys."
Yeah.
And we're not a runner-upper score but like we better score 100. So we go through, and we get off to a huge start. We scored 9, 10, 11 runs in the first inning. And there's an issue with some cleats. Somebody's wearing the wrong shoes or something, so they make us change. So like we have a little break. So Casey during this break walks over. He's coaching third base. We're in the first base dugout. I don't know what is going on, but all of you guys better stop. This is embarrassing. So he walks to third base. I look right down the dugout at Wright State, and I look at every one of them, and I say, "If any of you stop, I'm cutting every one of you."
True story. And like all of us were like, yeah.
Why you guys pick on Casey so much?
I mean,
It's so fun because Casey had no idea what was going on.
yeah,
So we end up-
it's a tough.
Long story short, it's like 18-0. This coach finally goes, "Okay, I get it. Can we stop now?"
Yeah.
But no, like I'm sure you guys have came across those opportunities where you've got, the moment to present,
Yeah.
in competition. Tell me why why you think that team took it so serious.
I think part of that's just, it's nature versus nurture. Some guys were like me, that's who I was. Yeah, I always played baseball that way. It was personal. I couldn't compete with guys I did if I didn't take it that serious.
Yeah.
Guys that, like I, Doug could say all these nice things about me. I wasn't that great. I wasn't destined to be, the next Pete Rose or, great Cincinnati baseball player as much as I pride myself in, being from Cincinnati and playing baseball. So I had to be competitive as anyone, like take it to that level to play with guys that were, more talented than me. And then some guys, Doug just brought that side out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and we, especially at 18, some guys that weren't totally on the plan at 17, even though, 99% were, some guys that weren't with the program on that of being, going to that level, they didn't come back for 18.
Okay, so a little bit. Obviously, you've been coaching for you coached for 5 years. You coached some really good players with
Yeah.
the Kenny Blackmores and Andrew Dryers, and all these guys. Grant Harris. Yeah, you know what I mean. But you had a special relationship with the 2025 class.
Mhm.
Yeah, obviously, you coached Ben Zink and Jack Duncan and Evan Fry and all those guys too.
A lot of great players, man.
Yeah, but the 25 class, you were special with your relationship with like Cooper Steckel and Brendan Rowe and Alec Halter and Grady Combs and Colton Mullenkamp. Tell us a little bit about what those guys mean to you and how your relationship has continued even though you've moved to Florida.
Yeah, so first to if those guys are listening, I'm still sorry I left and I didn't get to finish it out. I wish I could have. It just didn't work out that way. But that was kind of the first time where I got to pick a lot of, be there from the start and pick guys. Before that, Doug just here's your team, and that was kind of what I did. And I would either come on late or miss part of the earlier where you're developing that relationship. And I still did with, like you said, like Kenny, Grant, Andrew Dreyer, um, tons of other guys. I can't name all of them. But with the 2025 group, like I was here the first day that, me and Doug, did tryouts, and like we had 100 kids in this place. It was hot as all get out because there was 100 kids in here in August. And it's like, I get to put my thumb on this, and I get to have a say and get some guys that I want. One of them was Devin Seibel, and unfortunately Devin, like me, had some back injuries. But I remember him hitting in this cage closest to us, and I'm like, all right, this kid's raw, but he's got it. Like if you meet,
I remember Devin at that age too. This is like 15, right?
yeah,
Oh, dude, Devin at 15 was nuts.
yeah, he had like in the way he naturally backspun the baseball, he had big hands.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you ever shake his hand, it's like it doesn't make sense. I'm like, okay, this kid's got some natural power. If we polish, some edges up, which had to be polished, and Devin would admit that too. We're going to have a great baseball player. And unfortunately, injuries kind of wrecked some of that, but he had an awesome year. Grady, I love getting to work with Grady. Colton was easy. Colton came in, had the glove. I didn't have to do much with him, but me and Colton had a great time. But like Grady, that first fall, I remember we went up to Sandusky and kind of struggled at short, and just like he stuck with the program and bought what I was teaching and really cleaned up a lot of stuff there. And now he's going to, be a college baseball player at a great JUCO. Josh Bevan's one I'd want to talk about because I doubted him. I didn't know all the details that he had a broken nose, so I thought he was kind of soft. Turns out one of the hardest dudes like that in that class, just like tough as nails. Coop, Coop I'd worked with since he was 12. We have a lot in common. He's actually going to Earlham where I played, but we're into fishing and, country music and all that stuff. And so me and Coop had a special thing. Alec, I mean, Alec's the toughest situation in coaching, honestly, when you don't know the guy that's supposed to be the dude. Which Doug had, told me all about Alec. He's not only is he coming to DC, so I had, with my personality, I was a little bit worried with that. I didn't want to be too, I'm from Hamilton, dude. I'm a little bit rough around the edges at the time. But, him being so talented and coming from WOW and like being this D1 guy, even at 15, we all knew.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, is this guy going to listen to me? And Alec was just like, he's one of those, like the coaches at Wright State that get him are so lucky. I mean, he is the guy that's going to come in day one and he gets it and he's going to be locked in. He's going to make, the positive changes that whatever they want him to do, there's not much they have to do with him. He's going to be in the weight room and like that. I
think
can't thank
Alec
Alec enough.
answers better than a lot of the guys that I've met in my past. And what I mean by that, by answering, sometimes you give a kid a list of things to improve,
Yeah.
and he takes it as a consideration. Alec takes it like heart surgery, like it's serious.
Yeah, totally.
Just-
Yeah, you better come with the why with
Yeah,
Alex. I mean, and there's Colton's that way too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like
Cole-
if you don't explain what you're coaching, they're just gonna blow you off. Like you better know why. You better tell me why so I can understand why I'm doing
Yeah.
this.
I mean, both those guys came from big programs, and like that is especially when P413 or well, it was still Canes at that point when we were still growing and like at least I feel like a little bit of chip on shoulder. you know, I wasn't sure how those guys come and listen to me, and they both, gave me just utmost respect immediately. And, I feel like we got a ton out of those guys that year. The guys that bought in, like that I listed there, and there's some I'm sure I forgot. Yeah, it's a special group. I really appreciate those guys and still talk to them, every now and then, when I heard from Coop through recruiting and same with Colton, all them. So
Yeah, I think, as far as my impression from the 20, that was the first Canes team I ever got to watch as a coach.
yeah.
Doug brought me on in their 16U summer. And when I went out there to watch them, I mean, those kids, all of them had a certain, just one thing about them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That made them special, made them different. Colton probably gave me a hard time for
Yeah, Colton,
the first 6 months that I known him.
Yeah.
But one of the best kids I've ever met. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
he just, a
Yeah, I
phenomenal
always
human
loved
being.
the Corey Judah dynamic.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
man.
they're so much
Judah,
like
yeah.
they're so much like each other off the field, but Judah's a pitcher and Corey's a hitter, and he handles pitchers. So that was always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Watching that dynamic.
So last time I actually saw the guys play was down in West Palm. I'd moved down to Florida, and shout out to Judah and Matt because and Amy too. Amy's awesome. But my relationship with pitchers, like go stand in the corner and get away from me.
Yeah.
I like when I coached infield, I told all my infielders like, these guys once they like Judah's a brilliant kid, great kid, funny, but like once they get on the mound, something goes on there, take the ball from them, take control, don't let pitchers make decisions. That's what I always would say. So it was special. I mean, it's different. And then off the field, me and Judah were pretty tight, man. But ultimately when we were picking that team, like I said, that mattered to me. The question we would ask each other, especially if it was close, like, all right, would this guy be able to play with my group at 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some guys since you've been gone that have been added, like Brody. Brody's a great.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about him.
He's a great kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I just think that 25s, we say special group about a lot of guys.
They're good, yeah.
They're special.
Group, for sure.
They're
Yeah.
special.
No,
I
I've
love 'em.
enjoyed it.
Well, and each group's special in their own, like our
Interesting dynamic. for
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
the 22s, like, I coached that group as well. Like they carried, was that last season what all we expected it to be with them?
No.
And in some ways, no. In some, a lot of ways, no. It was a frustrating year at times, but ultimately they carried the torch on from what my group did. They actually had D1 guys. They actually, went and played at these big tournaments that, some we couldn't.
Yeah, I
get
mean,
into.
three of the 5 starters are still pitching Division I college baseball.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Crazy. So like that group carried on the torch from what my group did, and then same with this 25 group. They're taking it another step to where they're not just going to places like the first year we took them down to West Palm. We were really a bad inning away from making it into bracket play at the Palm Beach Classic.
Yep.
Which that was
Big deal.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's no,
for sure.
no slouch.
well, like I said, man. So I want to end with our final question that we always ask: if you could change one thing about the game at any level, what would that one thing would you change about baseball? Because it's obviously the game we all love.
Yeah. I've heard you ask this on a couple pods, so I've tried to get. There's a lot of things, man. I don't know. I hate some of the, all right, being a bigger guy and everyone's like, oh, all you care about, is home runs. Cause I do like guys that slug baseball. Like, I wish people sat down and like thought, like, what is OPS? Like, don't discriminate against the other two types of slug. I love doubles and triples just as much as homers. Like, don't sell out for that home run, every time. Like, even though it didn't exactly work out the best for me, like, try to go tear the fence down. Like, be a bad dude in the box, go tear the fence down. Because, like, to me, a double and triple, like, that's way more fun to see, especially a triple. But you're going to be able to be a better hitter going for that. Then as you develop as a man, you're going to grow into that, smash, what used to be a smash double off the right center field wall is now carrying 20 feet over it. And you're going about the right things. Like, so yeah, some of the, I'll just say, teacher man crap.
Well, like I said, I love you, brother.
I love you.
No,
too,
man, that's about all the time we have. I just
Yeah.
wanted to tell you, Corey, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Because I've heard so many stories, and I just really wanted to put it all together. And I think you definitely overexceeded what the expectations were. To find more stuff like this, just go ahead and follow us on Spotify and YouTube, and we're also on Apple as well. And to never miss a notification, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right, boys.
It's good to see you 2 days in a row. Look at that.
Yeah, man.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time. Slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.